All right, in your homework last night, one of the things you were asked to do was find the centroid of a triangle given its vertices, and this was number 28. It was also number 27. You were asked to do the same thing. And I went ahead and graphed this particular triangle on my little grid just to get a basic idea of its shape. And then I decided, because I'm going to want to look at the medians, I want to make it kind of more spread out so that I can see what's inside of it. So now that I got a basic idea of the shape, I went off grid. Here I am off the grid. And I'm being asked to find the centroid. So let's think about what the centroid is. It's the place where all of the medians meet. What's a median? A median is a segment that goes from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So I need to know some midpoints. Let's think about how many I need to know. There are 3 medians. They all 3 meet at the centroid. But how many of them do I have to figure out where they meet to know where the centroid is? Only 2. Because if I know where 2 of them meet, then the third one also has to go through that same point because they're concurrent. So this is a midpoint, and I could also use this midpoint. It really doesn't matter which midpoints I use. I'm going to use these 2, and I'm going to go ahead and find the midpoint by using the midpoint formula. So I've got 8 plus 5 divided by 2, negative 1 plus negative 3 divided by 2. This is 13 halves, negative 4 halves is negative 2. So that's one of my midpoints. And here's another. 2 plus 5 divided by 2. And 7 plus negative 3 divided by 2. That's 7 halves and 4 halves, which is 2. So these are 2 of my midpoints. So if I want to know where the medians meet, here's a median, here's a median. I need to look at the equation of each of those 2 lines that I just drew. Okay, the ones that I'm going to highlight now in green here. That one and that one. If I can find an equation for each of those lines and then figure out where they meet, that's my centroid. Okay, so I'm going to figure out the equation for the line that goes from 8, negative 1 to 7 halves 2. So 8, negative 1 to 7 halves 2. Okay, that is going to have a slope of 2 minus a negative 1 is 3. 7 halves, which is 3.5, minus 8 is negative, oh, let's see, negative 4.5? 3.5 minus 8. Yep, should be negative 4.5. Let's just do it as a fraction. 7 halves minus 16 halves. 7 minus 16 is negative 9 halves. Okay, and remember that to divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. So the top here is 3 over 1 times the reciprocal of the bottom would be negative 2 over 9. That's going to be, and I can cross cancel the 3 and the 9, it's going to be negative 2/3. So my line has a slope of negative 2/3, which doesn't seem right. Let's see. 2 minus a negative 1 is positive 3. And 7 halves minus 16. Okay, this seems right. Maybe I drew it wrong. It looks like my drawing is not to scales. The reason I said I thought it seemed wrong is because this looks like a positive slope. But remember that, you know, when you look at something like that, you have to remember that you're the one who drew it. So apparently I should have made it look like a negative. I don't know. All right, so my slope is negative 2/3. So again, I can use point slope form. I'm going to use this point just because it's easier. Y minus a negative 1 is y plus 1 equals negative 2/3 x minus 8. Y plus 1 equals negative 2/3 x plus 16/3. This is subtracting 3/3 from both sides, and I get negative 2/3 x plus 13/3. So that's one equation. That's the equation of this line right here, is y equals negative 2/3 x plus 13/3. Now I need to find the equation of the other line. So I'm looking for an equation of a line that goes from 2, 7 to 13 halves negative 2. 13 halves is like 6.5. All right, so let's start a new thing here. From 2, 7 to 13 halves negative 2. I'm going to stick with fractions. 7 minus a negative 2 is 9. This is the slope. 2 minus 13 halves. That's 4 halves minus 13 halves, which is negative 9 halves. So this is 9 over 1 times negative 2 over 9. So that's negative 2. So the slope of this line is negative 2, and I'm going to use this point right here. Y minus 7 equals negative 2 times x minus 2. Y minus 7 equals negative 2x plus 4. Y equals negative 2x, adding 7 to both sides, plus 11. So that's the equation of this line. Y equals negative 2x plus 11. So what I've got now is I've got equations for both of my lines, this one and this one, and I'm looking to find out where they meet. So I'm going to solve the system of equations with those two equations. So that would be the easiest thing to do here, since they're both solved for y, is to just set them equal to each other. So negative 2x plus 11 equals negative 2/3 x plus 13/3. Helpful hint, anytime you have fractions in an equation and you don't want them, find a number that all the denominators go into, kind of like a common denominator. Here that would be 3. And you take your 3 and you multiply every single term all the way across by 3. In other words, 3 times this, 3 times this, 3 times this, 3 times this, 3 times everything. 3 times negative 2x is negative 6x. 3 times 11 is 33. 3 times negative 2/3 x is just negative 2x. 3 times 13/3 is 13. So now I have no fractions. So this is 4x equals 20. X equals 5. And to find out what y equals, because we're looking for a point, I can go back up here and plug in a 5 for x anywhere I want to, really. So this is y equals negative 2 times 5 plus 11, so that's 1. So the point 5, 1 is where my two medians meet, and therefore that is the centroid. And that's it.